Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. My name's Dilta Doherty, and in this podcast series, I will be speaking to investors, advisors, entrepreneurs, and recruiters who are based all over the world. And we'll be discussing how to set up, scale, and operate a world-class recruitment company in preparation for my trip to New York next week. I just interviewed a New York-based rec to rec called Dandan Zhu. She is originally from Boston, but has lived and recruited in New York for years, worked for the S3 group for 5 years before she left the industry for a little while, became independently wealthy through properties, and has set up a rec-to-rec business, and it's just done around a year at that, and is already planning world domination. What you'll find out in this interview is that she is very, very ambitious. The intensity with which she speaks and how she presents, it's really interesting. And you can just taste New York off her. You can just go, oh, wow. When I speak to her, I think, wow, it must be just full on living and recruiting in New York all day. And she really has that whole vibe. So cool. It was cool interview. I even got her to sing a verse of a song because she said she wanted to be a pop star. So that was entertaining. And over to Dandan. Dandan Zhu, how are you today?
I'm doing really well.
What a lovely accent you have. Where are you from?
I'm from Boston. Well, I'm Chinese, but I'm from Boston.
You're from
Chinese
Boston.
American. Yeah.
Are you based in Boston still?
No, I'm mostly in New York. I'm up and down the Eastern Seaboard. We're pretty national, so do travel quite a lot. But East Coast, New York is kind of my primary focus.
Yeah. And do you live in Boston though? Dandan, do you live in Boston?
No, I live in New York now.
Oh, what part?
Brooklyn.
Oh, wow. And how's life there?
It's amazing. It's great. I love it. I'm used to it. Creature of habit now.
Yeah. Okay. So look, thanks very much for coming on the podcast. I've given everybody a brief rundown into your background, but I suppose my upcoming trip to New York has prompted me to reach out to somebody who has not only been an agency recruiter with one of the major firms and served their time there for almost 5 years. Isn't that right? You did 5 years with S3?
Yep.
But you've also got a rec-to-rec business in New York and on the Eastern Seaboard. So who better to ask about what life is like for a recruiter on the East Coast of America than the one, the only Dandan Zhu, hey?
Thanks. Yeah, no, I'm happy to share whatever you think would be great for the listeners to get some insight into out here.
Yeah, brilliant. We now are sitting on 50,000 downloads, which is really exciting.
Exciting.
So hopefully having a person with a good profile like yourself will get us a few more in America, which is we're always after. What got you into recruitment? Were you fresh out of university?
Yes. So pretty much I graduated in 2009 and then took a year to help my family with their Chinese restaurant in Boston. And in that year, I was going through a lot of mental problems because I had this dream of becoming a Chinese pop star. And I really wanted to do it. I was winning all these contests, but unfortunately, I couldn't really have the confidence to pursue that dream. So I was very demotivated. And the only thing that drove me to even want to be a pop star in the first place was money. I wanted to be rich and famous.
Really?
And so then I started to think about the careers that will allow me to be rich. I know that I couldn't get famous right away, but I know that I could get rich first. So I was like, what kind of job can make me money? And so I just started applying to sales jobs. And then, of course, as many recruiters do, I fell into recruitment when I applied to a job board and the recruitment company called me and ended up being my future employer.
Right. Let's jump into why you wanted to be rich and famous. What's that? Oh, firstly, give me a little song Come on. Like,
Oh,
what did you sing in your last competition? Just give me a verse.
oh, let's see. Okay, I'll do my favorite. How about Saving All My Love for You?
All right, go
Okay.
on, crack on.
So I'm saving all my love for you.
Whoa, there we go. That's a first on the Recruiter Startup podcast. All right, we are off to a flyer here. There we go. All right, USA. I'm pumped. I hope you are too. All right, so that led you into agency recruitment. You joined S3. So many business owners start their careers at S3. Out of all the major agencies, S3, in my opinion, from interviewing hundreds of leaders around the world, breeds more leaders and business leaders than the other big agencies. What do you think it is about that agency that inspires entrepreneurship?
I can only speak from my personal observation. I would argue that a couple reasons. One of the reasons is because S3 is very entrepreneurial. So it rewards people who have a true sales drive, which means that they're not scared of the phones and that they're actually enjoy the process of going after new clients. So that's a problem that I see a lot of recruiters don't have, that capability of actually hauling in new clients and hitting the phones and going nuts with the BD side of things. S3 breeds excellent BD people because it's a 360 model for the most part. So I started off day one, clients in the afternoon, candidates in the morning, day one. Like the minute you get to work, there's no questions asked. You're hitting the phones. So I think that kind of expectation and the culture, just sort of the drive, the type of people they look for. Then they also hired us back then on a very low base. So I think it again attracts people who are really, really hungry. So I started in 2011 at a 35 grand base in New York City. Now, I don't think inflation has really taken off in this country. In fact, there's been deflation. So there's not much of a cost of living differential between 2011 and today. It's not like massively different because like the dollar, whatever, anyways, economics. But in general, 35,000 back then was really not much either. So it was like you got a very certain type of profile that was sacrificing a lot for the potential of that payout. So that person that S3 hired, especially in that early day time, in the sort of 2010 to 2014 timeframe, they were all extremely hungry people. They weren't on these big bases. So we were eager to prove ourselves. Then lastly, I think S3 in particular, perhaps in my case, we were actually not getting equity packages. So when you don't have a presence of a retention package, it's way too easy to just start your own firm because there's no equity package. We didn't have that. Like counterintuitively, if you look at a firm like Faden or Nigel Frank, they have very strong retention packages where even if the people at those firms are actually making less money, they're actually staying because they want to stay for those equity packages. So they're not getting top dollar in terms of commission, but they're staying because of that payout.
Those payouts, that you need to be careful on those. There's always different types of share schemes, and there's only a few people that I've met that have actually got properly paid out at the end of a cycle. A lot of other people have been promised. Have you met many people that have got massive equity payouts over your time?
I think again, it just all depends on when you joined. So like if you joined in sort of the early sort of 2005, 2010 range, 100%, those people have very insane packages, right? Like had I started my career at one of those firms in that time frame, I probably would not move agencies. I probably would still be working there because those are quite significant packages. So I do know that is the case. And certainly if you look at American staffing trading firms. There are a few as well that have these equity packages where people there 10 to 15 years ago today are still there today because they have these insane packages to the tune of $500,000 to $750,000. I've heard and I've seen, and those people are like, oh, they're so terrified because the non-compete clause as well in relation to that payout.
Yeah. I suppose there's very few firms that do what Faden did and do what the Frank Group did or do what S3 did in the 90s. It's a tough thing if you're a recruiter, I think, and if you're hanging in there for that equity payout. I mean, they're so far and few between, and especially if you're at a boutique firm, like forget about it. No point. Like get out there, set up your own. That's kind of my view. Unless you are unless you can see, okay, here's the trajectory. Like if say for example, you're Kieran Behan at the top of the tree at Faden, like that made sense. He was first in, he's last out. He'll be probably there beyond whatever the next sale point is. But if you say you leave and you're at a 5-man firm and they say, well, here's equity, how much is that 5-man firm ever really going to sell for if they don't scale?
Sure. Yeah, I think it comes down to like a personal point of risk and how they view money, right?
Yeah.
Like to me, it's like 300 grand isn't that much money. So like that kind of retention program isn't very exciting. 300,000 isn't going to change my life. Now, so it's all about how much money and what it means to you. Because I talk to somebody who's like, oh, I have $50,000 worth. I'm like, that's not money. Like you can't even look at that as a real equity package, right? An equity package, I think, to mean something would have to be at least $500,000. Because other than that, it's like in recruitment world, we're talking big numbers here. So the equity, again, it's time value of money. If you're going to wait 10 years to collect 750,000, that's $75,000 a year, and it's inflation diluted. It's diluted by inflation because in a period of 10 years, yes, there will be inflation. So I do think that it is not a good deal depending on how that money is divvied up and your current comp scheme. Let's say you're taking 20% commission now for this later payout. Well, what if you just get 40% commission now? Like, that's better than waiting for the payout. So it's all relative is my point. And at the end of the day, it comes down to the individual in terms of their personal situation, whether or not they should start their own firm. Because the money, the retention thing, no matter what, it's not going to be more than being a very successful business owner.
You talked a lot about money, and I can tell that it's a passion of yours, and you've said that from the start. I've read some of your content. You've done quite well with the money you earned at S3. What type of things did you do to get yourself financial security at such a young age?
Yeah, I was always trying to find the quickest way to retirement. And that's why, again, I entered sales in the first place. I was like, I just want to make a lot of money. And when I did earn it, I didn't want to spoil it. I didn't want to waste it. And so even while I was working, I was able to save a lot of money. I lived very cheaply. My rent was under $750, and it decreased every year because I then took over the lease, and then I rented out the rooms in my apartment. And now I have multiple apartments. I rent out lots of rooms. And so my cost of living is extremely low. And I've always did that to my personal discomfort, right? Because I have to share a house. I don't need to. I can fully afford whatever. But I wanted to save a lot of money so I could invest it. So in the beginning, I invested all of my money into stocks. And I invested the majority of my money. So I didn't really have savings. I'm not a big believer in savings. I read a lot of books about economics and finance, personal finance, and investing. And it's all about just investing as much as you can, especially when you're young. Like you just want to get in the habit of investing, not relying on savings. Because I don't know how much you know about the US market, but I don't believe that the 401k is that valuable. I think it's kind of like it's kind of like
is that the pension? Is that the pension contribution?
Kind of. Yeah, exactly. It's like we don't have pensions here anymore because of the way things are.
It's a private pension.
401k. Yeah. What was that?
Is it a private pension?
It's just you putting money into it. So like I take money out of my yearly income and I put it into a 401k. And there's different tax ramifications of that move. It could decrease your tax burden a tiny bit, but that just locks your money up till when you're like 65 years old. You can't touch it until you're 65. So I'm not a big believer in these things that you wait for your golden years, because in my view, I'm going to be so rich that I don't need to worry about the retirement stuff. That's just how I view my life. I'm like, I'm just going to keep investing smartly with my current dollars and invest it at a faster rate of return than the actual 401k. That's my view, is that I have the ingenuity, the thought process, and the capability of investing my money better than these like third party, like decision making, like large cap, small cap, automated funds. That's my view. So my first step was, let me put all my money into stocks. Let me pick stocks. So I'd ask my clients, I'd be like, what stocks are you guys buying? What do you guys like? What's good? Because these guys are experienced. They know the industry more than I do. So I would just copy them. Whatever stock they buy, I'd buy. So I just borrow their ideas. And then afterwards, when I was 25, I had saved up enough money to put on a down payment for a home. And on my weekends, I would just go to the library, read books on tax, and read books on, all the real estate investing strategies, and essentially was like, cool, I'm going to pull the trigger and just do real estate investing. So then I bought my first condo when I was 25. And then I just kept buying properties after that.
Have you always had this intensity about you?
Pretty much always, yeah.
How do you unwind?
I'd like to go to the gym. I like to
you unwind by doing a marathon, do you?
No, I like to sit in a sauna and just stew in there. So I like watching TV, eating, hanging out with friends. I do all the normal things, and I sit around quietly and read a book or like play some piano.
So you are able to chill out a little bit.
Oh yeah.
I'm not very good at unwinding either. So let me ask you some questions about your time at S3. What interests me is I want to know what the American perception is of sitting in that room and having lots of UK recruiters coming in and probably thinking they know it all already on the marketplace. What was that like, being a local in a market where you're in a high turnover environment with people coming and going, and there's so many expats coming over? Can you kind of set the scene of what that's like for somebody who moves across?
Yeah. So when I started, the company was still very young. So there was only, I think, 50 people in the New York office. And that was the only office we had at the time. So I joined in 2010, January. And so when I joined, it was a team of 5. The other 2 were Americans. The other 2 were Brits. My boss and my boss's like second in command, they were both British. And it was their first month as well. Pretty much we had all just gotten there. Obviously, my 2 leaders, they knew recruitment. They understood full desk perm recruitment to the top level, right? They were very, very successful in England. And so when they came to America, they had no business, they had no clients, and neither did I. So when I joined, we had nothing. We had nothing at all. In fact, we had no idea what we were doing. It was a new market. I had no idea what the market was about. I had no idea what the candidates did, no idea what the clients did. So when we joined, we were all ignorant. We were all ignorant, except they knew one thing. They had self-belief. They knew that they knew recruitment, and they knew that they could make it work because they came to America for this opportunity. So I really enjoyed working with my team in the beginning. The 2 Americans we hired both ended up getting fired. We hired and fired. So I was the first one that actually was part of that team. And then we brought in 2 other really successful Americans, as it turned out, later in the year. So that core group, we were like the most tight group, happiest group. Those were the best days, where it was just like the most motivated people, the most hungry people, supportive, and 0 territory restraints. We could cover the whole USA. We could go after whoever we wanted. We didn't have any client book. So everything was a new win, was a new success. And that was just an incredible experience and set us up for success.
Yeah, cool. And what about when it started growing and there was more and more people coming in from the UK?
Yeah, well, some people were not that great. So some people come over and they were not top producers. They didn't end up like doing amazing things. And, it was kind of weird because I became a top producer. Two other people on our team became top producers. And some of the newer people that would come would really struggle and they couldn't really do it.
What
And
type
I
of
just
things
thought
would they struggle with?
they just struggled with doing the job, like getting clients and doing deals. Like they just couldn't do it. Like they couldn't do a lot. I don't know if it's because they were too distracted. I think I do know some of the reasons. I think they do get distracted with the lifestyle. They go party, they go do lots of stuff in their free time. And that's not what my bosses did when they first came here. We all worked super late hours. But what I noticed about these newcomers were that they just didn't work as hard as we did. So it took time for them to build their business. And some of them really never really built it. So it's a lot of people, I think, later on just didn't have the same hunger that we had at the beginning of the business.
A lot of UK recruitment firms struggle to fit experienced American recruiters into their business. Why do you think that is?
I don't actually know if that's the case, because we place a lot of experienced American recruiters into British firms as a main kind of thing that we do. Like that's obviously I'm a US based rec to rec. So one of the popular things we will do is a couple things. One is moving Brits to other British firms because that's the only legal way that we can do it. The other is moving American recruiters to American businesses, and then vice versa, moving Americans at American businesses to British businesses. So there's pros and cons of American businesses versus British businesses.
Walk me through
There's
them.
pros and cons. So the pros of the British business is that you have actually sales people. You have actual people who like to hit the phones, who actually are hungry and super, super money motivated. That's more likely to find at a British firm, largely because the base salaries are much lower than American recruitment companies. So the level of production is very high. In terms of like the capability of billing. So you take the top biller at a certain age at a British firm in America, they're going to be younger and they're going to be billing more than your average American recruiter at an American firm. The level of hunger and the level of, again, I don't know if it's because of the status and the growth cycle of the business, but you just don't really bump into $800,000 billers walking around in American firms in their 20s. It's like rare to see that. So that's a huge draw for American recruiters who are like, you know what? I don't want to be a 200K producer. I want to be a 600K, 500K, 700K producer. Those people are perfect to move to a British firm.
So you find, but so they'd be underperforming, or they'd just be average in American firm, and you think just changing the environment and the expectation means that there's a greater chance that they can get up there?
Well, it depends on the individual, right? It depends on their willingness to work hard and their ability to be coached and leverage their existing skill set to be upskilled to a level where they can become a top producer. Because a lot of the times it's the luck of the draw, right? Like I found S3, it was pure like fate. It was random. It was super random. So that same thing happens to Joe Schmo American recruiter who like goes to some random American company. And then they figure out the game. They're like, wow, this company isn't really that successful. And I feel like I like the job, but I don't like where I work. That person we can help. We can't help the person who's inherently lazy. That person will never be a top producer, no matter where you stick them.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you were thinking of setting up your own business, I asked myself this question a lot as well. Like, you were ideally placed to set up something within the niche that you recruited in, and that would have been so scalable. Why did you go into rec to rec as opposed to focus, like take a little bit of time off, get rid of your restrictive covenants, and then like go into that high end stuff that you were doing? Because you were in regulatory affairs and quality assurance, and like there isn't a better niche to get into, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, I ended up my last year and a half doing executive search. So I was doing deals of a size of 100K, just the deal alone.
Yeah.
The size.
Wow.
So here's what I thought about that. And that's a really great question. When I quit S3, I got into real estate more. So I was buying and selling and being a landlord. So I kind of pivoted out of recruitment. And I think this is a mistake a lot of recruiters will do. After like a long run at one recruiting firm, they're like, that's it, I'm done. Like, I don't know anyone outside of S3 other than my S3 contacts. And at that point, a lot of my S3 contacts hadn't fully made it into new companies. So my network was very limited. I also didn't have the support of any rec to recs that were really professional, and like nobody, as you cannot believe it, nobody messaged me ever. I never got hit up by anybody.
Yeah, neither did I when I was in an. See, it's different now, right? You just get hit everybody's a rec direct now, so it's.
Oh, I see. Exactly. I think it's the changing of the times, right? Back then, there were no rec directs. Even in 2016 in America, there was like no rec direct activity. In fact, I never knew it even existed. So in 2016, I just quit. I just collected my last check and just quit and just did the real estate thing. And I started this career coaching business. I never thought about starting an agency because, one, out of loyalty to S3, I really felt a little bit guilty. Like, like it just feels so grimy if I were to like even pick up the phone and call my old client. Like, to me, it was like a little bit of loyalty. And it was ultimately like, what's the solution out of that? Like, okay, let's say I go and call up all my old clients and got all the jobs back. What do I now have? I have another job. At that point, I owned so many properties. It was like, I don't need income. I don't need to work anymore. So like, what's the point of busting my butt for money? At that point, my motivation has changed. My motivation had now changed. Instead of making dollars and cents, to actually making a business that was meaningful. So that's why I started doing career coaching. I was like, oh, how can I maximize my knowledge and support the consumer level people? And that's why I started career coaching. After 2 years of doing that, towards the end of 2017, I really started to realize how much I hated non-recruitment businesses and non-recruitment jobs. I just realized that I don't like anything except recruitment. Recruitment was the only thing I actually liked, nay loved, right? Like, I love recruitment. So I just realized how much I missed it. And then all of a sudden, somebody hit me up in late 2017 and was like, hey, could you recruit a recruiter for us? I was like, that's interesting. I was like, cool. Yeah, let's try it. The minute I said yes, all of a sudden I posted something on LinkedIn. Everybody started hitting me up. Oh my God, you need to recruit for us. You need to recruit for us. All of a sudden, all these clients. And I was like, holy cow, now it's time to incorporate. Thankfully, I found a business partner, Victor Wong. We started the business in 2018 in terms of a corporation. Last year, we grew the company to a size of a total team of 7 now. So kind of an accident, long story short.
Yeah. I only asked the question because like I was an IT recruiter beforehand for 4 years, and I think if I had a time machine, I'd probably have invested my time in setting up a niche IT recruitment business. Given what I know now after being in Rec Direct for nearly 4 years, and it's a very hard business to scale. It's an even harder business to manage yourself out of, because it's so personality driven, and it's almost an impossible business to sell because it's not contract driven. So there's like a zero reason to go into it. Only that it is cool doing it. It's fun. I'm enjoying the media side, but it's a tough way. It's an easy way to get started. It's a hard way to scale. Don't you think?
Well, we found it pretty straightforward because we have a lot of processes. After the training that I received at S3, I really have a very good idea of how to run and grow a recruitment business. So I use the same exact, not exact, but a lot of the similar concepts in my company. At the same time, we are very different, like totally different. Which is, I think everybody coming out of S3.
Like what type of stuff? Like
we're all remote, first of all. So we don't have any core hours. I don't have core hours.
No, but what type of stuff did you take from S3?
Oh, just like processes, like candidate call structures, right? Like how to have a candidate call, right? All the stuff that we were trained on. It's this, I'm using the same strategy, right? What's the correct client process? Same general strategy. Like, recruitment is recruitment. But S3 obviously has excellent like processes and knowledge about how to train that. So of course I train my staff the same way I was trained. And I really like helps them really understand the concepts behind the actions that you do and what you're trying to get at, and how do you have really really good conversations with candidates, right? And how to quickly build a business around the top 20% of talent, right? So that's how I've always worked. I've worked only the best people in any given market.
Yeah.
So this is my third market now, and I still do the same thing. I only work with the best candidates. We don't mess around with B-tier players. We don't mess around with B-tier companies. We only focus on the top talent and top firms. It's the only way to run a recruitment business. So we're very picky who we work with. We have very distinct questioning tactics, and I can sniff people out. Like, you know, now that we've been doing it for a year, the beginning, certainly I made mistakes. Now it's like I can sniff them out like a mile away, because now I really understand the market. So I'm able to train that and teach that to the staff, and our staff is all remote. So we all have a very different way of working and a different type of culture that we're trying to build. And I think so far we've seen some emerging leaders in our company really rise and come to the top level. So I do think we can build this kind of structure, but it is, as you said, it's incredibly difficult. It's incredibly time consuming. I'm single. I don't have a family. If I had a family, if I was not single, I don't think I could do this job.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a family. I've been doing it for a few years now. I actually think it's probably more of a lifestyle business rather than a scalable business. Like, you could run, I have a lot. When you talk about processes, I probably started with some of those processes as well, because I was at Robert Walters, and look, all the big companies are the same with their training. Hayes, Robert Walters, Robert Half. Like, there's not a paper wall between it. But I think as time went on, I was better at automating certain parts of those processes, getting virtual assistants involved, like creating a remote team, doing all of that. So I'm freed up to do this type of stuff. But the hard piece, the really hard piece is when I was an IT recruiter, like, you could do perm, you could do contract. The jobs weren't all just similar. You could work with candidates through their whole lifetime, whereas in recruitment, everybody's after that 3 to 5 year recruiter, 2 to 3. Like, it's very specific. Nobody wants somebody who's at a certain age. Nobody wants somebody who's like, it's much harder than, I think, normal recruitment. And I think, like when was the last rec direct business that was ever sold?
Right. I don't plan on selling my rec to rec ever, because I have a lot of plans with it. And there's a lot of plans that I have. I have a plan of total domination. So I have a very big dream.
Walk me through that.
Well, I'm used to dominating any market I go into.
Okay.
That's just how I've always done recruitment. That's what I've been taught, and that's what I'm used to doing. Okay. So I'm very good at the niche model. That's exactly my preference. I don't like multiple roles, to a point where I don't even represent corporate or internal jobs. I have clients that ask me all the time. I have people that ask us. We tried a tiny bit last year, just kind of like, okay, maybe. And we realized, no way, we're going to stick to what we do best, which is going 6 levels deep into the same market. So every single person in our company, they are hands-on. We don't outsource anything. There's nothing virtual. We have bare bones technology. The way we do things is completely manual, to a point where we spend money and a lot of expenses that other people are like, how are you affording this? This is why we are able to do placements at, I think, a very quick level, because we are so deep in the network, and we're just getting deeper and deeper, and our network is working for us now, because that's just the way I'm used to doing it. So we love going after the one specific profile. And the more specific it is, the more I love it, because we have a national plan, we have an international plan, and it's all built upon this one specific profile. Like, everybody outside of it, we're not interested in.
Well,
so
who describe me that profile?
Well, it's the typical agency recruiter, right? It's the agency recruiter profile, whether that's a 1 year, 0 year, 10 year, 15 year. It's only the agency recruitment profile, and not only the agency recruitment profile, but like a true potential to be some serious player in this space, not just somebody who's like popping in to like check things out and try their hand. We're looking for go-getters who truly are somewhat related to where I am in my level of intensity and dedication for this craft.
All right. Okay. Yeah. I suppose that makes sense. Um, what what should I do in New York? What are the key things? Actually, let me rephrase that. For any recruiters that are moving there, what advice do you have for them?
One is that they shouldn't move if they're moving for a dream of having a good time. That is the last thing to move for. I think people, again, agency recruitment is very simple. It is to make money. It is a job in which you can make a lot of money. That's all it is. It's nothing more and it's nothing less. If you come to America in any city for to have a good time, that is the wrong motivation. The motivation should be realizing the commercial aspect of this country, of understanding the market potential, having a very deep thought about your plan, about this country, understanding the commercial aspects of it. Because again, people moving to America, they're not junior recruiters. It's because of the immigration system, they usually have at least 3 to 5 years of recruitment experience. So these people should be smart enough and commercially minded enough to come here, not for the sell of having a great time, a fun time as the primary driver, but more so for the financial aspect. So they must know what they're getting into. And when they do come here, that again applies. If you're like the people that I've seen come here to just have a good time, go on dates, blah, 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 that's all fun and dandy. It's not great for your career because you're not going to be super successful. Dating? No, not dating. I'm not dating. I mean, like just having fun all the time as a primary driver.
How much fun are we allowed to have?
Like once you've earned it, you can have as much fun as you want, right? Like the first 6 months, you should be working, like no matter where you live, right? If I move to a foreign country and a company has sponsored me to do this, I'm not going to leave at 6 p.m. to go on dates for the first few months, right? I'm just not going to do that. That's just not my person. I don't do that. And when I look for talent, I look for someone similar to me with a similar level of drive. I'm not here to relocate people who want to.
What if they were really, really good looking and you had a tough day?
We still judge on the core principles because our responsibility to our clients is to make sure that we're giving them revenue generators, not party players. We're here to help them look for game changers who are financially motivated. So again, I think one of the key things I look for is someone who's going to understand what delayed gratification means, which means after 3 solid months of hard work, where you've built up your business now, you got some clients, you got some jobs, you now can do whatever you want. Yes, go party. Yes, go do your thing. But in your first few months in a new territory, the worst thing you can do for your career is to have fun and start just having fun. That's just not going to help you.
So earn the fun.
Earn the fun. You're welcome to have as much fun as you want. As we all know, recruiters, we all party. We have I have lots of fun. Everybody has fun.
But I have no fun. I have kids. I have no fun.
Oh, that's even more fun. I wish I had kids. I think
you can have mine. You can have Linda mine.
I'll take them. Come
on over here, make a few calls for me, and I'll go over to New York and have a party.
Exactly. No, I love kids. It's just, again, I think to set up a business to be successful, whether you have your own firm or whether you work at someone else's, you do need to build it up. After you build it up, you can do whatever you want.
Any last parting words of wisdom or knowledge you'd like to drop, Dandan?
Yeah, I mean, I think for most of your audience is local or thinking about relocation, right?
Yeah, a lot of them are thinking about relocation from Australia or the UK.
Yeah, I think relocation is a really big move. I personally never really thought about doing it because the US market is so great. I think the best way to think about relocation is, again, kind of looking at it from a commercial perspective and not being blinded by how much fun it's going to be, because everybody on every step of the way is going to tell you how amazing it's going to be. And the reality is you really shouldn't make a move that's not financially responsible. And it also has to be realized that when you do move locations, the responsibility on you to learn and to invest and to work is probably double what you're used to in your current state. Because if you're Joe Schmo, a successful recruiter that's living in England right now, your business is developed. You have lots of clients, you have lots of candidates. If you have forgotten how to build a market from scratch, if you have forgotten how long and how much work, how many hours you need to put in to get clients and build a candidate system from scratch, if you have not remembered that, it will be a very rough, a painful adjustment, because you're going to be paid top dollar to relocate. You're going to get these great packages. If you're not ready to invest in the work, it's going to really suck for you. And it could potentially ruin your life. I have seen people's lives be ruined because they were not ready and they were not motivated correctly for their move. They came to New York for the bright lights and Broadway shows and the fun and the people, right? Oh,
How dare they? How dare they?
No, they can, but they were irresponsible because they did not hold up their end of the bargain. Their end of the bargain was to continue to work hard, because recruitment is recruitment is recruitment. You do not get successful at this business if you do not work hard. That's just forever the way it is. So if you move countries, it does get easier to a certain degree. I think the market is a lot better in the US for sure, but it's not going to be that different. So if you have a bad work ethic in England and you come here, you're still not going to succeed. Or if you have a decent work ethic and you come here, you're probably going to be okay, but you probably won't really see the type of experience thought for yourself, because it is also a very expensive country with high tax brackets. So it's to really understand the commercial aspects of moving and how does that change your financial situation, and what are you willing to do to put in the work for what you want.
All right, Dandan. Thanks so much. Thanks for coming on the podcast and dropping
all that
knowledge.
Having me. Awesome. Thanks, Walter.
I wish you well. Bye.
Thank you. You too.
What a beautiful voice she has. Fair play to Dandan for coming on and belting out that wonderful interview and verse. As I said in the intro, love the intensity. Love you can feel New York offer and you can feel S3. There's two things that are coming out strong there. And I wish her the best. It's tough business to scale though, rec to rec. And I wonder in years to come, will she pivot? Having done this for 4 years, and I hope people don't think I'm having too much of a moan. I'm really appreciative for all I have. It's just maybe being on this journey of doing this podcasting and getting to speak to the best founders in the world and the best tech rec people and advisors. You know, if you want to create a proper business, there are easier disciplines. And if you already have the background like she had in pharma with the local network and a US passport, it's a no-brainer. You could scale that business in a heartbeat. So that's why I asked the question. But it was more directed at myself than her, because, I've been doing this for nearly 4 years. So enjoyed speaking to her. Enjoyed the whole New York thing, and it was good to get the impression of what it's like from an American sitting in the room over there. I loved her intensity. I can just see her sitting there, and I can see myself, a young lad coming in, a bit cocky, going out on dates at 6 p.m. and her probably shaking her head. This guy's a time waster. But hey, we're all different. We can't all be the same intense characters. But she has a point in that when you do move internationally, there is no safety net, so you have to just put your best foot forward. But hey, listen, there's a bit of crack to be had as well. Anyway, that's me for today. We will be back tomorrow, and then I don't think I'll be doing as many podcasts next week because we're recording live in New York, and that's going to be fun. So we're just back-to-back meetings, recording the experience, have a videographer booked, and yeah, I'm sure it won't be perfect, but we just need to figure out what we're up to and see if this type of thing works. So hope you can all tune in and enjoy that whenever it comes out. Thanks guys, and happy hunting.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.